Hi, my name is Dan Wilhelm. I'm a principal and broker at Three Options Realty. We do residential real estate. We help people with sales, leasing, and property management. Today I want to talk to you about choosing an agent to help you with purchasing investment property. And I'll just start off by saying that all agents are not the same. So when you're looking for an agent, understand that. Now that might sound a little obvious. Of course, they're not all the same. But my 23 years of experience has shown me that a lot of people don't really draw much of a distinction between one real estate agent and another, and that really is a big mistake. And I just want to kind of talk about that a little bit and give you my thoughts on it. I think you need to start with looking at different brokerage policies. We have some companies out there that are invested in the idea of working with investment properties as rentals and that sort of thing. We call them property management companies. And then there are some brokers out there that are really more dedicated to sales. And there's a big distinction right there, because if you hire one of the agents that works in sales, you're not going to get the benefit of the experience of those who are in the business day in and day out doing property management. And there's some problems that come up when you have those kind of situations. In the brokerage houses that do sales, the issue is that most of the brokers that run those companies, they don't have any experience themselves in property management, and therefore they steer their agents away from doing that kind of work because they can't guide them, they can't help them with that. When as an investor and you work with one of those kinds of agents, because they'll certainly tell you they can help you buy a house, and they certainly can help you buy a house. But the problem is there are certain things about that property they don't understand that they need to understand. For example, here's a couple of things. One is the sales price, the rental price. Sales agents are very good typically at doing a market analysis and determining what a sales price ought to be, or at least a range for selling, but they're totally unfamiliar with the rental market. So they sometimes don't do a very good job of that. In fact, I get phone calls all the time, truthfully, all the time, from investors who have recently purchased a property with the sales agent, and they come to me and say, we'd like for you to manage that property for us, and that's great, but the problem is the agent has set a false expectation. They told them, for example, well, we think it'll lease for $1,200 a month, and in fact, if we get $1,000 for it, we'll be doing really well. Well, that's really unfortunate for the investor, because the investor has actually made calculations and made his decision on purchasing the property based upon his return on investment, and that's a critical factor for an investor. Well, if they're going to get $200 less a month for the property, that's not going to fit in very well with those figures. And a lot of times these investors are pretty discouraged when they come and talk to us. Another thing is that when you overprice a property like that, or if we have to overprice a property, because a lot of times investors will come in and say, well, try to get $1,200 for it anyway, because we need to have $1,200 to make our numbers work. So we'll try it, and I already know the outcome. Typically what will happen is it'll sit on the market for a long time. And if it sits on the market for a long time, that's a lost opportunity cost for that investor, and that's expensive. Without a doubt, the most expensive part of investing in real estate is having vacancies, and we're going to have them. If we do find a fool out there that will rent the property for $1,200 a month, my experience has shown that it won't be very long before they figure this out. And once they figure out they're paying too much, they're going to want to move. They're for sure not going to renew the lease, and then once again we have another vacancy. So, and then we got to put the property back on the market again, and because we're going through all of the steps and all the costs of marketing, the investor gets to pay another marketing fee, which is, that's hurtful. Another area, though, that sales agents don't understand is that there is a median price range in every marketplace. And let's say that the median rent rate for a particular area is $1,000 a month. And the agent helped them buy a property that's going to rent for $1,000 a month. Well, there's a lot of competition out there at $1,000 a month. So let's say, on the other hand, the agent was aware of that, which most property management agents are aware of that. And let's say we help that person buy that same value property, but we bought it in a market area where the median price range is $1,200 a month. Now the $1,000 a month rental is going to be much more competitive. It's going to probably rent much faster, and we're going to have a happier investor. There's another thing about that a lot of sales agents don't understand, and I'll give you my own personal experience. The 4 years after I had started sales, my sales career, I decided to start investing in property myself. And the second house that I bought, I thought I was being really clever because I bought a 4-bedroom property. It had 2 bedrooms and a full bathroom upstairs and 2 bedrooms and a full bath downstairs. It was in a subdivision that I could have bought a similarly sized property, but only with 3 bedrooms for about the same price. And it seemed to me that it would be a really good idea to buy a similarly priced home with 4 bedrooms, that probably a renter would enjoy having that 4th bedroom. There's no more square footage there, but there's another bedroom, and that may have some convenience for some families. Well, I was really, really wrong about that. And what happened was that property wound up being, and now I've held this property for, I think, 18 years, and it has always attracted renters, of course, renters, roommates. I call it, in fact, affectionately, I've named this my roommate property. Roommates are not the preferred choice for an investor. I'm not going to discriminate and tell someone that because they're roommates that they can't rent the property. But it seems to me that that particular layout, that particular setup was just very, very attractive to renters. And I can't even recall if I've ever had a family in that property in all these years. I've had a lot of roommates, have roommates in there right now, in fact. And so the problem with that is, in that same subdivision, for example, I have a 3-bedroom. That was the first property I bought, actually. It was in the same subdivision. And that property, it's been leased for 12 years to the same family. So that's the kind of difference. And in my roommate property, it's probably rotated over 15 times. So there's a lot of cost to the investor in that. But the point I guess I want to make here is that only experienced property managers know about these kinds of things. Sales agents just don't get it. And I'm not disparaging sales agents, but they just don't have the experience. So the other thing I want to point out too is that a lot of times investors will use a sales agent to purchase a property, and then they'll ask that same agent to help them find a tenant. And this is another really bad mistake, because they don't really have the resources. Their brokers are not invested in the marketing systems to find tenants. And here's the reality. 80% of tenants out there are unrepresented. That means they don't have agents helping them. If you use a sales agent to help you find a tenant, they're going to be appealing to those 20% of the marketplace that are working with agents. They're vastly limiting your opportunities and your choices in terms of finding a renter. With a property management company, if it's a good one, and most of them are, they're going to be invested in resources that will help them find those tenants out there that are not working with agents. And so we have a much broader pool to choose from. I want to also talk about, it's pretty obvious where I'm going with this, is that if you're going to hire an agent to help you with purchasing a property, it probably should be someone who works with a property management company. And that's the truth. However, there are also differences in property management companies, and I want to draw a distinction there for you, if I may. There are 2 kinds of basic organizational structures for property management companies, and I'm talking on a national basis right now. We have departmentalized companies and we have portfolio companies. Departmentalized companies are companies that are staffed. They have property managers, they have leasing agents, and they have other staff, administrative staff, and they're all on payroll. They all have jobs, 9-to-5 jobs. And what happens is, if you go there and ask them for their services, you're going to be introduced to probably their closer, who's going to talk to you about what their policies and programs are. And as soon as you sign up and say, yeah, I want to work with you, then they're going to turn you over to a leasing agent, a different person altogether. The leasing agent is going to do the leasing work. They're going to market the property. They're going to show the property. And depending on the company, some of those leasing agents will actually do the lease interview. get them to sign the lease, and then maybe even do the move-in inventory. In other companies, the property manager will do the inventory and maybe do the lease execution. But in almost all cases, the leasing agent and the property manager are two different people. And in many of those companies, the leasing agents will be able to help you with your purchase. But the problem there is that even in these companies, those leasing agents don't have the property management experience. All they do is strictly leasing, not property management. So you're missing part of the equation. Let's take a look at the portfolio company. In the portfolio company, you have an agent typically who, if you call the company and say, I want to talk to you about your property management services, an agent will come and talk to you. That agent will close the deal with you, but then they will also turn around and be the leasing agent for you. Once they get the tenant in there, then they become the property manager. So they're there for the whole deal. It's about establishing and maintaining a relationship between the property manager and the landlord. That's a much better proposition for an investor, because that agent, who is also licensed to do sales, understands the entire experience. But they're also, when they help you buy that property, they understand that this is going to be a long-term relationship, and if they help you buy a property that's not going to work, then they're going to be left there, and it'll be pretty obvious that they did a bad job. So they can't really afford to help you get into a property that's not going to work well for you. So I guess the bottom line here is this: do your homework. Check out the people that you hire to help you with purchasing a property, because it could be very costly, a big mistake if you don't. I'd like to invite you to read the attached blog. I get into a whole lot more detail about this topic in that. I want to thank you for listening to me today. I hope that what I've told you here has been helpful. If in one way or the other, I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you.